I welcome you again to this panel discussion organized by Ashank Desai Center for Leadership and Organizational Development. My name is Harish Premi. I'm a PhD scholar at Ravi J. Mathai Center for Educational Innovation at IIM Ahmedabad. Um, we have been really fortunate that in this panel discussion, we have amongst us the experts, the stalwarts of the area of organizational development and change. And it's our fortune that today we'll listen to all these experts who will shed light on the theme organizational development, new frontiers in emerging times, insights for practice and academia. So let's give a huge round of applause. Let's warm up ourselves. I think we all had a delicious lunch, and so after lunch there's a little bit laziness, right? So let's again give a huge round of applause to warm up ourselves and get ready for this discussion. Before I hand over the stage to the moderator, Professor T.V. Rao, I would like you to introduce all our panelists. Let me start from the ladies. So we have amongst us Dr. Veena Vohra. Please give her a huge round of applause. Dr. Veena Vohra is a professor, Human Resources and Behavioral Sciences at School of Business Management, NMIMS, Mumbai. She is a PhD in Leadership and Emotional Intelligence and holds an MBA as well as an MS in Psychotherapy and Counseling. Dr. Vohra has designed and chaired the impactful MBA HR program, served as the chair of the flagship MBA program at School of Business Management. She also served as Associate Dean, Programs and Student Learning Experiences, driving several innovations in student-centric learning and the institutionalization of several academic administrative practices. Dr. Vohra's research, consulting, and training interests lie in the domains of organizational behavior, organizational development, leadership, and emotional intelligence. She has published a number of research papers and case studies on managing change in international journals. She has co-authored books on organization development, talent management, and human resource management. Welcome, ma'am, to the panel discussion. Next, we have Mr. Prasad Kumar. Mr. Prasad Kumar is the founder of Human Endeavors Associates, a niche consultancy firm specializing in strategic advisory for owner and partner-led companies, family businesses, and corporates. He has worked in senior executive roles with many leading companies, partnering in their growth and success. His experience with family business advisory and corporate development spans over 5 decades. He is engaged in coaching board members, top management, and senior leaders across industries and is an active life coach to business leaders. He has been member of the Economic Times Advisory Panel on Family Businesses, the Economic Times Advisory Panel on Corporate Board Governances. He teaches specialized modules in family business, leadership, and succession at IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Bangalore, Indian School of Business, SP Jain Institute, and many other leading business schools. He's also been executive in residence at Kellogg School of Management, Chicago, USA. Please welcome Mr. Prasad Kumar. Next, we have Mr. Debashish Ghosh. Mr. Ghosh is a senior human resource professional with over 20 years of experience in managing end-to-end functions in HR. Over these years, he led both global organizations and Indian conglomerates across multiple industries and locations. His core expertise lies in organization culture transformation, change leadership, and talent management. He is currently working as Senior Vice President and Country HR Head for Barcadia. Prior to this, he was associated with GE, Genpact, and the Ramoji Group, managing multiple roles in HR. He has been awarded with 2 of the most prestigious HR credentials in the world, Senior Certified Professionals from Society of Human Resource Management and Global Talent Management Leader from Talent Management Institute. Mr. Ghosh is a sought-after public speaker and has delivered guest lectures, keynotes in over 200 educational institutions and industry forums. He is also a LinkedIn influencer with over 75K followers. He is a trusted mentor for many students and young professionals. TopMate, a mentoring platform, has recognized him as one of the top 1% mentors worldwide. LinkedIn has also recognized him with the Top Mentoring Voice badge. Please welcome, with a huge round of applause, Mr. Ghosh. Next panelist is Professor Ashish Pandey. Professor Pandey is professor with Shailesh J. Mehta School of Management, Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, Mumbai. He teaches the courses on organizational development, human resource management, and self-mastery to students of postgraduate levels for the last 10 years. He's published more than 40 research articles in reputed national and international journals and handbooks in the field of spirituality at workplace, mindfulness. The most recent recognition of Professor Ashish's work includes the Best Paper Award during the Indian Academy of Management meeting 2020, Fredzer Scholarship to his 3 PhD students, Outstanding Reviewer in Academy of Management, recognition by Fowell Center of Case Western University for the years 2016 and 18, and the best paper during doctoral consortium with his PhD student. Professor Pandey is regularly engaged in consulting work for organizations and leadership development with organizations across industries. Please welcome Professor Pandey. And we have amongst us Professor T.V. Rao as moderator for this panel. We are greatly thankful to him to be here. I would give a brief introduction about Professor T.V. Rao. Dr. T.V. Rao, chairman of T.V. Rao Learning Systems Private Limited, is a pioneering figure in human resource development, widely regarded as one of the fathers of HRD in India. With over 55 years of impactful contributions, he, alongside Dr. Uday Parikh, introduced HRD in India by establishing the first HRD department at L&T. Dr. Rao served as a professor at IIM Ahmedabad from 1973 to 1994 and continues as an adjunct professor. He was the L&T professor of HRD at XLRI Jamshedpur and has held leadership roles as the founder and first president of the National HRD Network and the Academy of HRD India. Beyond academia, Dr. Rao has made significant contributions to nation building through his work with the Administrative Reforms Commissions and the HRM Review Committee for Public Sector Banks. Internationally, he has consulted for organizations such as UNESCO, USAID, and the Commonwealth Secretariat. Known for groundbreaking methodologies like 360-degree feedback and the HRD Scorecard 2500, Dr. Rao has been instrumental in transforming HR practices globally. He has authored or co-authored over 60 books, cementing his legacy as a thought leader in HRD and organizational behavior. Please welcome our moderator of the day, Professor T.V. Rao. We are fortunate today we have amongst us the best panel if we talk about OD or the change. I don't think we could have been any better panel than, and we have pioneers of the field, we have stalwarts, we have people from academia, we have people from industry, and definitely it's going to be a very insightful session. So not speaking much, I would hand over the mic to Professor T.V. Rao to moderate the session. Let's listen to the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this gracious introduction of all of us. On behalf of all of us, I want to thank IIM Ahmedabad, particularly Ashank Desai Center for Leadership and Organization Development, where I'm happy Ashank is here. Niharika and her team, who are responsible for getting all 5 of us here for this. Friends, I'm only a moderator. You will hear a lot of wisdom from these 4 people. I agree that there can't be a better panel than this, because one thing peculiar with all the 4 panelists is all of them have worked in organizations. So they know what organizations are. And all of them are professors, part-time, full-time. All of them teach once in a while. And all of them are ardent believers in organization development. Organization development, for some of you, I'm sure everyone in this room knows what organization development is, but in the olden days, and I think even to a large extent, is defined normally as planned change initiated with the help of the top management, using behavioral science, technology, knowledge, and things like that, and based on values of participation, collaboration, and so on. Normally, these are some of the components. And why this becomes very important even at this point of time is what we have gone through during COVID time changed the entire nature of organizations. I think there is a definition that is put up there. There may be a few other components added here. Veena would tell us she co-authored a book, the famous book by French and Bell on organization development, I think 2017. Veena, I think you did that, and there's only one edition I noticed in that book where she said that OD is not only developing organizations but developing individuals also. That to me is a little peculiar because I was recently reviewing all the literature and practice in OD, and a large part of OD to me appeared to be focusing on HRD, and so much so sometimes one finds it difficult to distinguish between these two. But anyway, you will hear more from the four panelists. The way I've structured is first I think we'll have a free flow for about 5 minutes on the theme. And the theme, what we are talking of is new frontiers in emerging times. I would like to ask them, what are these emerging times in your view? How do you characterize the challenges faced in work and in life in organizations and so on? Insights for practice and for academia. What are some of the significant insights today you would like to draw on the basis of your experience? Currently, what are the challenges faced by organizations by virtue of the changing nature? Why OD is needed at this point of time? And what are your top of the mind views on organization development? I would want to start with PM Kumarji. I think you have such rich experience. You have driven organizations to, as both as an internal change agent as well as using consultants, as not have widely read. You also write interesting short papers for family business and so on. So I start with you, sir. What are your views?
Thank you, TV. Thank you. So I won't take long. I'll just create a where I'm heading. I'll start before the future scenario with some challenges as I see them, because I think opportunities need to address challenges as well in the flow. So one set of challenges come in the organization's structured entity, that part of the organization which has to do with making money, being effective, and so on and so forth. There's another set which comes from organization health. And so I'll cover these two very quickly. So when I look at some of the challenges in organization as I engage with them, as organizations grow, and all of us know this is nothing new, bureaucracy sets in. And bureaucracy is the enemy of agility. In a hyper-competitive world, it needs to be loosened up, agile processes. So there's a whole set of interventions, both mental, physical, systemic, which gets people to get into a form of agency beyond roles, structures, and being, etc. So adaptability, adoption, shorter time frames. There's another peculiar thing that I'm noticing when I deal with change, that at least there are 3 generations working at the same time in an organization. The youngsters coming individualistic, thoughts. You have the, incumbent seniors who like to see things happen exactly how it was done exactly so many years ago. And so there is a conversation that is happening or not happening between these two sort of groups. They are very interesting. For instance, the whole concept of loyalty is changing, mindsets around it. So some years ago, if you had in your resume several job changes, you were not looked at favorably. But today, if you have several job changes and you get into this selection process, you're looked at completely differently. These are just small issues. So this is one. So the second one, I think comes from the social milieu, because health and social milieu are very intrinsically linked. So for instance, there is a social divide. There are obscene levels of inequity, fragmentation, the disconnect between the self and the other. There's a spiritual divide. We are disconnected with ourselves. Increasing levels of burnout. I don't have to tell you all this. All of you have read and know this. I'm only reconfirming that the implications it has for organization health has not received the attention it receives. So all of this is the second piece. There are several reasons: joint families waning, nuclear families yet to adopt their anchor. So all of this leads to organizations having to take account of the dysfunctionalities of the social milieu and attend to it, and therefore implications for OD. One thing is clear: business as usual is not an option. Okay, so let me move on then. So what am I saying? What are the two wheels of future OD? One is building organization agility, debureaucratizing organizations and the way they work. And the second is creating what I want to call as a healing organization. Can organizations be oases of people who are living in the social milieu, all the descriptions I've given you? Can organizations think of themselves as healing? And there are 2 pointers to me. There's a conscious companies, conscious capitalism, I'm involved with that. That movement is gaining tremendous acceptance in India. Thanks to Raj Sisodia, who's doing a lot of work in that area. So we will talk about that, we'll elaborate that a little bit more. The second, in healing organizations, is it possible to consider OD doing something in different ways, and we can elaborate that later, of creating purposive communities of belonging. And the last, and I believe these two, when taken together or whichever way, adds to institution building. So I think there is a larger sort of institution building there, but it has 2 components of conscious companies and so on. And conscious so I'll just very quickly, what is healing? Healing, Gabor Mate talks very quick about healing. I think is a fantastic book, The Myth of Normal. He says healing is returning to wholeness. That's all. It is self-retrieval, not self-renewal. It is not self-growth. It is self-retrieval, to retrieve yourself to yourself. And reuniting with one's inner qualities. All this may sound very philosophical, but because people are not able to heal themselves, their behavior, their citizenship, if I may call it, in organizations is being challenged. So that's really it. As far as conscious capitalism is concerned, we can go into that in detail. We don't have too much time now, so we can talk about that. As far as some conscious companies, very quickly in India that I know, this is not an exhaustive list, it's an illustrative list. So for instance, Amul right here, Arvind Eye Care Hospital, Fab India, Hindustan Lever, Marico, Murugappa Group, Narayan Hridayalaya, Tata's, Taj Hotels, Tata Steel, and a company that I helped build institution, Thermax, Titan, etc., etc. There are many international examples, but we won't go to that. We'll stay with that what is near and available to our experience, either directly or indirectly. So I will talk later, and if we can go into, when you see organizations as communities rather than economic machines, then the whole issue of communities start unfolding itself. When the CEO is seen as the mayor of the village, we have a completely new mindset that the CEO engages with. So we need to work on psychological contracts rather than economic contracts. We need to work on, Ubuntu, I am because we are, right? and vibrancy. So vibrancy, and am I speaking in an ivory tower? Am I just talking concept? I plead that I'm not, because there is a framework, there's a way of intervening in organizations to increase vibrancy. There are 4 anchor questions. Who are we? Which is the why we exist, the identity, the persona. What we do, our activities, strategic directions, which is the structural anchor. Who we are is the institutional anchor. How we do what we do is the cultural anchor. And how we feel is the sentient anchor. These 4 anchors, imagine them, in the center is vibrancy. If you systematically engage with each of these and intelligently, smartly, mobilization of organizations occur. Another Mahatma Gandhi mobilization of the country for a larger purpose. Think of those qualitatives. That's India was vibrant. I don't mean in terms of vibrant Gujarat or vibrant this, but India mobilized. So this is one last piece. One might think sentient processes are it's a good idea, but I'd like to unpack the box with certain processes that facilitators, behavioral scientists, OD practitioners can engage with. So catharsis is one. Organizations where catharsis is possible are healthier. Organizations where togetherness happens, healthier. Organizations where equalization happens, healthier. Organizations where people can absolve shame, mistakes, failures, healing happens. Rejoicing together, grieving together, and even humor. So all these processes create healing. So I'll stop here, and last bit, there's a body of work which has also informed me. Very quickly, Spiral Dynamics by Deccan Cowan, Reinventing Organizations by Frederick Laloux, Theory U, Otto Scharmer, Meaning Quotient. McKinsey has done a lot of work on meaning quotient. Paul Stolz talks of adversity quotient. Siraj Shamain talks of positive intelligence. Peter Block, talks of community. Scott Peck talks of different drums. And of course, John Mackay and Raj Sisodia talk of conscious capitalism. Let's stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. I think now you all can see a professor. Lot of very rich content. We have very, very rich content. Each sentence you have said deserves a deep thought and work on it. 2 things that struck me, what you are saying is important. I think what got us here won't get us anywhere unless you plan, do things. Second, debureaucratization. Sometimes means become ends and then it creates new tensions. So flexibility is required, and organizations should be places of healing, which is a very powerful statement you have made. Thank you for this. We'll come back for what interventions can be made subsequently. Now I'll go to the other panelists. Veena, what do you see as the challenges faced by organizations today with whatever changes have happened post-pandemic, whatever is happening today with the technology and so many things happening? Yeah, your views.
Thank you, Professor, and I'll try and rise to the occasion. It is difficult to follow Professor Prasad, but here are a few thoughts from my side, for the consideration of the panel as well as the audience. I like to bring in a little structure. So I'm going to talk from the outside in, from the lens of the organization. If we take a look at the external environments that companies are in today, ideologically, if you look at the area of politics, we're moving more right-wing, and this is more exclusion-oriented in nature. Whereas if you look at the field of OD, we follow the values of being more inclusive. And so, CEOs are directly being challenged by these kind of political environments where they don't know how to respond. It's really a lot of headwinds over there. The other kind of challenges that are happening in the external environment is also, perhaps because more of the rise of the platform companies and the platform economies, where we're seeing a lot more gig workers coming up. You'd be surprised how many gig workers are there in India today and how many are expected to arise by 2030. We are at 7.3 million, and and the recent NASSCOM report is saying that we are going to touch almost 23-25 million gig workers in India. And this is happening at the boundaries of the organizational spaces. Employment-employee relationships have changed. Now, what is this? How do we frame this as OD professionals? Do these come into our OD spaces? Do we intervene? Do we inform or educate organizations? How do we operate in those spaces? We don't have a prescription. We don't have some rule books or guidance over there. So these are gray spaces, gray areas. Why it is necessary for us as OD practitioners or theorists to look at this space is also, I feel, when you look at gig workers, and just delving deeper, when you look at gig workers, they are in the space. They've chosen to be in that space perhaps because of their choices. It gives them a lot of freedom, autonomy. But then on the other hand, it also brings them to the edge of precariousness. It's also a lot of financial instability. There is, you don't know how your next day is going to look like. And there is a lot of flip-flop in their value systems also. So this is a space which is struggling. And then you have organizations which are probably not responding to these individual challenges. And across the world, we are seeing a rise of solo self-employment. This is one of the major trends that is appearing. And are organizations responding, or is the field of OD responding? We have to think about it. We have to deliberate, because these new spaces, we can either own up and do something about, or we can be passive, right? And maybe later on I would make or advocate that we be more proactive for these spaces. Another challenge that we are seeing, and now moving a little inwards, is I'd like to talk about two major internal challenges, though there are several. One is this entire aspect of digital transformations. Any company that you see is either digitally transformed or digitally transforming, right? So what is really happening over here, and how do we look at it from the field of OD? Should we be looking at it? If you really look at it, I mean, where are these solutions coming from? They're coming from companies which are already having some kind of rigid software shells. They're bringing them to the organizational spaces, and you're required to adapt. And this is all happening because there are huge outcomes that we are looking forward to, right? So it's almost like a paved road to heaven, nirvana, organizational nirvana. The only problem over here is how is the social system adapting around all of this technological technology and change. Has it happened? Very well. And so while digital push is great for India and for Indian corporates, what is happening to the social system around it? Has that unfolded? Have we enabled it or not? Where are we with respect to that? Should we again become a little more proactive and to enable that transformation? Because I think it's a very painful space. It's also painful because research is telling us that CXOs are not absolutely sure how to drive digital transformation internally, and therefore many of these projects also fail, or they do not result in the kind of output that it aimed for initially. Simultaneously, what else is happening at the very human, in the very human space? And this is a paradox, one of the many paradoxes in the age that we live in. While we all are connected, we are also very lonely, right? So loneliness as a phenomena is on the rise. And it's very sad because, I mean, we thrive on each other. We thrive with each other. But loneliness is a very real phenomena that's happening in the workspaces. Is that a result of remote work? Is that a result of working from home or working from anywhere? Again, the answer is no. It's not a result of that. It is actually a result of organizations and to some extent OD professionals perhaps not enabling voice mechanisms within the workplace. Or what I'd like to say is that not creating space for communities to thrive. And that is also where our generation Z is becoming very, very disillusioned, because the work is extremely intensive. The work hours are long and hard. And then on the side, we do not have space that we have created very consciously for them to get engaged with communities. And so this is again another challenge that is there in front of us as OD professionals. Can we help our younger generations to learn how to build communities? And communities can give rise to very, very positive outcomes in society. Today we are seeing that happening. Crowdsourcing, crowdfunding. I mean, communities can really be a force of nature over here, force of change over here. And so these are some of the aspects that I would like us to probe on and elaborate on or touch upon, throw some light on as we are, because these are, very modern day challenges that we need to respond to. And we ought to deliberate upon. So with that, I'll just pause over here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Veena. That is wonderful. I noted some critical terms in what you have said: inclusion, exclusion, gig workers, solo self-employment, people not getting connected, feeling lonely though technologically you may be connected. I think there is a common theme emerging out of it. So you are coming closer to what PM Kumar said. Maybe organizations should, through OD, become places of healing and building communities, which is a very important point that you are raising. Ghosh, you are working in an interesting company, financial services, with some IT-oriented, working globally. What do you see as challenges from your experience, both currently as well as in the past?
I think we run organizations. That too, I'm an HR leader. We do stuff besides Rangoli as well. We are like, in fact, 15 years back, Vineet Nair he got about, I think, 1 million hits on his YouTube speech where he said an HR won't exist in 10 years. And thankfully, I'm here. I can tell you that there's never been a better time being in HR than before. HR is not even surviving, it's thriving. I think I'm saying this because of the challenges that we have. It may sound a little counterintuitive, but I think the kind of problems we are dealing with, it's really interesting. And I'm so happy that the panelists you're speaking with, you're from academia, is actually they're talking my language as well. Because some of the challenges I'll talk about, it's actually what you already articulated, which means that I think we are quite, there's been always a debate about industry, academia, are we synced? I think we are getting very synced right now. I'll tell you, I'll probably do up some couple of bullet points, and then maybe, if time permits, I'll deep dive into it. One is, and some of us may tend to believe this is not a strategic problem, but hybrid work culture. This is a real problem. It may sound tactical, but if you're a CHRO, if you're a CXO, not having people to office, partly there, partly not there, is a real problem from a culture point of view. We have no clue, I'm talking about CXO and CHROs, how to drive org culture, how to drive org learning, right? How to drive values, how to drive purpose. We have absolutely no clue. And when we have CXOs, and some of them are very popular, like Jeff Bezos and others want people to come to office, they actually receive a lot of flack. I'm not supporting them, but I know where they're coming from. It is not just, and we all know purpose and values are not just a good thing to do. There's a direct correlation between a purpose-driven organization, a culture organization, and their financial performance. It is proved by data. And because it is financially important for us to survive, it is important for us to people to get back to office or solve that problem. There can be other way of doing it, but we have not figured that out. Maybe the answer lies somewhere in this room. You're all very young research scholars. You can tell us this, how to really solve this, because we haven't really figured it out. It is a big challenge for us because I don't think iPhone could be made sitting at home. We cannot just be making profits these days. We have to innovate to survive. Just doing the same thing over and over again won't help us. And if we have to innovate, we have to come to office. If you look at some data, although you would probably know more than me because I'm more of I go to office every day, do some real bad stuff, roll my sleeves and work. But there is since COVID happened, the number of IPs have gone down. Innovation has gone down across industries. I'm not on a research on correlation versus causality, but I think there is a correlation there. It just cannot dip after COVID. You cannot be innovative if you stay at home, and if you're not innovative, you'll not be surviving. As simple as that. I'm not supporting Tim Cook and Jeff Bezos, but I think we have to solve this problem. Maybe we can be innovative and drive culture sitting at home. I am looking for that help, but I don't know how it is to be done. For me, it is a big problem. Second thing is, I think, about leadership competencies. We talked about what it was before, what it is now. And here, I think I completely agree with my fellow panelists here about the 5 years or maybe 10 years back, the kind of workforce I was dealing with was very homogeneous. But right now, you have gig workers, as you mentioned. Right now, we have people from multi-generation, sir, as you mentioned. I have almost, I think it was 35% of my supervisors leading people who are of higher age than them. I can't tell you how interesting this is when you actually work in organizations. There are people who has grown faster, young people leading old people. I don't know if you know about this, but in about 7 years' time, and by 2030, in the world, the way demography is changing, in the world, we'll have more grandparents than grandchildren. Just think about it for a moment. If you go to a park, a children's park, you would hardly find children, you'll find more grandparents. And because demographics, we won't have retirement age at 60. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing. But you will have workforce which will be needed to work beyond 60 because you won't have people to work because of the decline in fertility rates across the geography. I mean, we have women having less babies as we move forward. We have young workforce working with us. I mean, somebody has to do the job, and that will be old people. So how do we engage a workforce which is 55 to 70? Maybe we can't take them to a discotheque and do some outdoor activities and go for a DJ. We can't do that, right? How do you engage them? We have no idea. Again, talking about purpose and culture, how do you really build purpose with a gig workforce and young generational workforce? Therefore, I think the leadership, how we lead people in the next 10, 20, maybe more, is something we have not figured out. We need help. I think professionals do a lot of trial and error. We are doing a lot of it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I think there has to be some more deep thinking going towards it. That's the second one, leadership competencies, how it is changing or should change. I think the third one is really about, I think Professor Veena talked about digital transformation, is with the speed of change happening thanks to AI and automation and a lot of efficiency that is coming in, how do we then cope up with the speed of change? Before we know, our competition is coming up with a product that we thought about yesterday. This is crazy, right? We are thinking about a product that will launch about 1 year down the line. We have a workforce hired for it. We have training plan done for that product. We think it will be a game changer in the market, and something happens and my competition says that I will launch the same product in 6 months. We can't be having an OD program now, which is like 1 year or 2 years, right? We have to be more agile, more iterative. So I think, how do we really deal with so much of a rapid change, mostly thanks to AI and automation? I don't think we have really solved that problem. The fourth and the last one that we are dealing with as CHROs and CXOs these days about for lack of better expression, some themes that are very, very important. Themes around diversity and inclusion, themes on ESG, right? And themes on something around culture, right? Because we know that these are something which drives the new generation to perform. They can identify themselves with these causes and purposes, being environment conscious, being socially more conscious, of course about D&I as well. But if we have to have that as a purpose, and since this is something we think has to be built, how do we really do that? How do we, because it seems to us as practitioners that there is no, the world is kind of divided. If I talk about D&I as well, I think there are people on both sides of the platform, of the spectrum, right? Interestingly, I'll have a very simple example of something happened I didn't have an answer for. So we I think believe a lot in building diversity and promoting diversity of various types, not only about gender, otherwise of various types. So we had kind of recognized and celebrated the Pride Month a couple of months back in our organization. So there is an employee who comes in and talks to me. I said, I want to talk to the CHRO of this company. And he comes and talks to me and says that, sir, with due respect, I don't want to sound very insensitive to you, but I don't really believe in this pride flag of multiple colors. Can you please remove this from my desktop? Because what we did was that on the desktop, that particular month, we had put up this screensavers, to drive that kind of a message. And I don't think he was insensitive as well. I think he was who he was. He said, can I understand your company wants to drive it, but listen, I don't connect to this. Listen, I don't believe in this. Can you please remove this? So very interesting. So it sounds easy, but as well as a practitioner, it's very hard to do this sometimes. Even in ESG as well. I think there are, if you have heard Ashwath Damodaran's lectures, I think that he's on the other spectrum. He says it's all not a very noble practice of ESGs and of financing is done and things like that. But can you always put environment over profits? I don't know. We have stakeholders to report to. We have salaries to pay. We have stock markets to manage. I don't know really. I don't know if I turn off the tap of the pipe that goes into an emitting carbon emission to the atmosphere. I don't really know. Might be there. I'm sure there is a balance. There is something in between, but we have to figure that out. So these are some of the challenges we face every day. I'm sorry I've come here maybe to give you some answers. I don't have too many answers, as you see. As in the introduction, they talked about a lot of experts and stalwarts. What I've realized as I have done so much of HR and organization is that the more I have grown, the much lesser I know. I think if I have raised some good questions today in the session, I've done my job. Maybe I've come here to get some good answers today.
Thank you. I think that's a very nice and frank admission, and I think I go with that to a large extent. Part of it I attribute to the current kind of situation with, I think, what we went through in the last 5 years. I think largely you are raising HR-related issues. I think that's what you're saying. And generations, I think future generations you can't predict and so on. Ashish, I want to change the question slightly. Not merely talk about the challenges, because I think 3 of them have talked. You're doing some very interesting interventions as a OD specialist. I'm sure they are driven out of some of the challenges you face. So can you tell us a little more about what seems to work nowadays in your experience, and which challenges are you trying to meet? Is that okay, or you? Yeah.
Okay. With my all limited exposure and capacity, but of course not limited in terms of the supply of knowledge. And our young scholar was explaining that there is a wisdom and etc. And then Professor Rao said that he will not be sharing much because there is a lot of wisdom going to be shared. And I wanted to add that a lot of that wisdom has come from reading your books on HRD audit and so many. So really privileged. So thanks very much. It is wonderful. My favorite framework, since there are a lot of young scholars, if we look at the phenomena, the Ken Wilber's work on individual culture, structure, and individual subjective aspects, behavior, culture, and structure. If we look at any phenomena from these angles, we get a hang of it, what is going on. So very well elaborated. I'm a student of Indian philosophy, Indian wisdom. So if we look at simple terms, I will not start reciting shlokas and all, so don't worry about that. But simple terms, what are the terms for the world? विश्व को वर्ल्ड को हम क्या कहते हैं हिंदी में, बांग्ला में, of course संस्कृत में, गुजराती में. There are words like जगत, है ना, संसार, विश्व, ये 3 वर्ड हैं. विश्व comes with the term, the root word, which is not constant at 2 points of time. So that is the meaning of it. Vish dhatu, Vishwa. Sansar word comes from Sashra dhatu. That means that which keep passing. तो आप आज देख रहे हैं वो पानी बह गया, तो अब वो तो है नहीं जो पानी आपने अभी 1 मिनट पहले देखा था. तो संसार और जगत, तो जगत आप गुजराती में डेफिनेटली ये वर्ड है और हिंदी और मराठी में तो है ही. हम जगने को भी जगत कहते हैं, जाग जाओ, है ना. और जगत संसार भी है. संसार वो है जो निरंतर इमर्ज हो रहा है, द क्वालिटी ऑफ इमर्जेंस. तो ऐसा ओवरवेल्म होने की ज़रूरत नहीं है कि इमर्जिंग रियलिटी, लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स आर चेंजिंग. ऑफ कोर्स इफ आई एम फॉलोइंग द चेंजेस, आई एम ट्राइंग टू कैच अप. इफ आई एम इन द कैचअप गेम, ऑफ कोर्स वो प्रॉब्लम होगा. लेकिन जिसने इस जगत के स्वभाव को ठीक से समझ लिया है, उसके लिए कैचिंग अप गेम नहीं है. उसके लिए जगत चूंकि स्वभाव ही है, तो कांस्टेंट रिन्यूअल ऑफ माई सेल्फ इज पार्ट ऑफ कांस्टेंट रिन्यूअल ऑफ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन. सो दैट इज द काइंड ऑफ अ बेसिक, वेरी बेसिक थिंग, फंडामेंटल थिंग्स about engaging with world from the OD perspective, derived from the Indian wisdom. 2 things, sir, as you said, we have been kind of a part of some intervention. One is the future of business is not how it is looking like at present of the business. My firm belief is that future of business is social entrepreneurship, because we all are realizing it is not only in the field of business, it is also in the field of agriculture. You cannot spend more energy, more chemical, more stuff on producing which comparatively gives less energy, and which is not at the cost of the nourishing human being. You cannot malnourish the planet. So a lot of thinking is happening on the agriculture side. So it is that range. We are sitting in the state of Gujarat, which is not known for the agriculture. At least 2 lakh villagers are actively engaged. Major part of their agriculture now they are shifting towards not organic, natural farming. So that realization is happening. In the field of business, again, we need to look at, and we need to have, if humanity has to survive actually, we have to have business models which address cultural divide, as said, or the social divides, or the economic divides. So if you want to know more about it, I'll urge, if you have not looked at it yet, if you want to see what thousands of organizations are emerging and which is going to be the mainstream in next 2 decades. That is my understanding. I hope this will happen even earlier. AIM, aim to flourish, and Veena ji has also been involved in the prime, and this aim to flourish .com. At least 2,000 models working for profit organizations which are not polluting environment, which are actually making, bringing more equality in the society and making the work more meaningful, rather than delineating people from what they are doing. So I have been involved in a large number of social entrepreneurs and organizations which are along with all this, which comes with the change of technology, generations, at fundamental level. Again, I will go back to the Indian wisdom, and that's what we have been trying to do through appreciative inquiry, through visioning, through examining the business model from the sustainability angle. There are 4 purusharthas we all talk about. If we say the fundamental tenet of Indian wisdom, which guides individual life, are the 4 purusharthas: dharma, artha, kamana, or moksha. Dharma is intrinsic and extrinsic harmony. Artha is the means, also the material possessions. Kamana, kam, is the sensuous pleasure. And moksha is ability to transcend, go beyond, be free from the shackles of all these 2, artha, dharma. Most of the business have been predominantly focused on artha and kam, assuming that dharma will be taken care of. But it is not. That's why sustainability has become a big question mark in the current time. So you keep on doing business as usual, and then you realize that what you have done to your planet and carrying capacity and all that are reflecting the climate change and all that is enough data to tell that the world, the way it is going, it is not at all sustainable. It is the realization in the human consciousness. It is not only the process where the dharma arises. Dharma do not comes by making the standard operating procedures. It comes by elevation of the individual consciousness. So the seat of the transformation is the individual consciousness. And moksha is not something which is otherworldly, remaining in the world. If we are not able to develop our capacity to disengage from the earth and calm, then the conscious consumption is not possible, which is one of the 17 SDGs. And that is the fundamental requirement. If we do not realize to the conscious consumption, whatever talk we make about the sustainability is not going to survive, because it's the human being who are going to implement that. So these are some of the things which Indian wisdom suggests, and this seems to be the realization happening in the field of management as well.
Thank you, Ashish. You have lifted us to a different level, spiritual level, and also bringing in society. As I was listening to you, I was thinking we are talking of OD, not SD, not society's development. But I think somewhere you seem to hint that you should be concerned about larger societal goals. But I suppose what you mean is there are organizations working for environment and other kind of things. We'd like to hear more from you at some point of time on what OD interventions are you doing. Like you're mentioning to me that you have this program of large-scale interactive process where you get thousands of people under one roof, and that's one intervention. You also mentioned something on healing, if I recollect. I think we'd like to know a little more about you, but I am coming back to PM. Quickly, given this, now we have taken half an hour, a little more than half an hour to understand, diagnose the current situation. What are 2-3 quick interventions that can be made that are likely to work at this point of time? OD interventions.
Okay.
Short, 1 minute answer.
Yeah, sure, not even that. Yeah. Okay. So I have this thing. So essentially,
same question I want to ask each one of you.
so essentially there are plenty. So I'll just, I have this. So I'll just focus on Yatha Raja Tatha Praja. So one series of, call it interventions, is with leadership. Leadership not only at the top, but wherever there are leaders. It is possible and necessary to make these leaders more conscious. So this is the first intervention. It has that, billiard ball effect. What is that called? Whatever. You hit one ball and it has multiplier effect. So this is one. Second, OD practitioners must restrict themselves, in this context, OD practitioners must restrict themselves to designing and being the conductors of a symphony rather than being technicians of OD practice. So this is the second piece. Third piece, again I come back to leadership. alignment and affinity amongst leaders and shareholders, if it doesn't exist, it is a terminal risk to the organization. Business risks can be managed, but shareholder risks are terminal. So working with, again, with shareholders, top management. Third, facilitators, and I think Pandey Sahab, when you mentioned, we can't deal now with small teams, individuals. Yes, of course, coaching and all that. I'm not taking away anything. But we need to start focusing on large scale, large group. And the word that comes to me is how can we have large group, not so much for problem solving of organizations, which is now currently used, but for generativity. So that they can self-generate positivism, they can self-generate connectedness, they can self-generate. So once these three are done, the rest, I think, will follow.
I think underlying your four statements is that OD can't just be technique-driven, technology-driven. It has to be fairly long-term involvement with, I think, that's where I think working with maybe families, working with all multiple stakeholders you are bringing in, that should probably be quite unlike. So it's not enough to come do a role clarity exercise, a 360 feedback and get.
As a quick example, Delhi airport, Hyderabad airport, you can't just work with the employees in the airport. Yeah. You have to work with the security, you have to work with the entire system to be able to deliver to the passengers what they expect. That's an example. But if in addition they can have a social consciousness, then the same Delhi airport or Hyderabad airport or Turkey airport or whatever becomes an institution in that
very
country.
Interesting, very interesting. So OD has to go far beyond. It can't be any more like in the past. Technique driven, it has to be socially conscious. Would you like to say something, Veena, from your review of so many things that are happening?
Yeah, I'll
what interventions seem to work?
I'll come to it. I'll just build upon in a manner of scaffolding, just build upon these conversations. One is, I'll just pick up from what Ashish mentioned earlier. Although he did bring in societal development, and you commented on that also. In fact, when I was just trying to prepare and put my thoughts together, I had also come to a similar conclusion that OD must today respond to helping organizations become more sustainable in nature and develop that consciousness. Now, for a long time, sustainability, if you ask two people what sustainability means to them, they will give you different interpretations, definitions, which is why we have never reached a point, even after the report was published and sustainable development was put out there. In fact, if you look at the term sustainable development, it doesn't go together, right? So similarly, even when you look at the field of OD, two practitioners of OD will never give you the same definition. It's where they stand in life. It's where they stand and the kind of work that they're doing with organizations, they will talk with relation to that. So just to kind of connect to this point, can OD today intervene or design interventions in such a way that they are helping organizations to work very closely with local communities? And there is a reason for that, because what Professor Prasad was also mentioning, he mentioned that local communities, if you see, are best positioned to take care of the environment. They have the resources and the commitment and the passion required. And so in some ways of community building, if we can develop that vital capacity within organizations to work with local communities, perhaps it would be crossing some boundaries, but we might need to get to that. The other reason why I think I'm making this statement also is that I started to teach a course recently that I developed, which was on building resilient organizations. And that was built on the premise that today crisis points are becoming far more frequent. Earlier we used to think that they are few and far between. But today, if you really look at it in an organization's life cycle, crises are becoming very, very frequent. And you don't know, where you're and what is going to hit you. It is relational capital that gives you immunity to thrive, to survive, even during crisis. And so where will that relational immunity really come from? It's going to come through engaging with your local communities, right? So a little larger concept, but OD can look at it. What kind of intervention, sir, will be successful over here? I've not yet thought that part through. But now coming back to precisely your question, I think that interventions today, of course, to do with the area of leadership, a lot of leadership development is required, because some of the OD practitioners that I spoke to in preparation for today's discussion, they mentioned that CEOs are actually becoming more siloed in their thinking. They are not very consultative in nature. They are more short-term driven. They are more oriented towards driving results for their stakeholders. And that is, again, connecting with the point that you made, Debashish. So can we get OD back onto the table of discussion for leaders? Again, over here, what is the role that board is playing? Are they concerned about the organization development or not? So there is a question mark over there. So apart from leadership development, alignment, very firm alignment between the individual goals and identities with the organizational goals and identities is required. There is a lot of work that needs to happen in this space. Otherwise, there's a lot of alienation that we are seeing. Today, again, I come back to Gen Zs. They are feeling highly disconnected from the workplace. They're not finding purpose and meaning at the workplace. It might also be as a result of the intensive work that they're seeing. Organizations also need to do a lot more work in the areas of risk assessment and therefore learning how to survive and thrive. How does OD come into that space? What interventions will work over there is something that I think is necessary. Rather than being activity oriented, OD practitioners need to be process consultative in nature. A lot more process consultation, immersion has to happen within the organization. I'm going to make one more point and rather two more points. A lot more facilitation is required. The second thing and the last point from my side, and I'll pause, is across organizations we're also seeing some kind of evaporation of the middle management layers. There are various reasons why that is happening, but an opportunity that exists for the field of OD is wherever middle managers are there, if the CXO and the board is not paying attention, CXO level and the board is not into OD, can we train more middle managers in India to drive OD to the top and to the bottom? That's it for now.
That's very interesting. Only thing I was thinking as I was listening to you is the moment you tell a OD practitioner you should be involved in community development, first question he would ask is, who is going to be my client? Who is going to pay for it? Unless you are a social reformer and so on. I want to ask a question to both of you. In the olden days, at least the OD consultants I know, the first OD I heard of, which was written by Dharani Sinha and a whole lot of them, was this Coal India. Started sometime in mid-60s or early 70s. Dharani Sinha and Nitish, a whole lot of people worked with them. In fact, just the other day I heard an interview by R.N. Sharma, 101 years old, who was chairman at the time. Talking, he still remembers the kind of change he brought in using OD consultants. And they worked for a long time with Coal India. And some of the people say that today, if a culture of at least looking inward, it has been there. Uday Parikh worked with medical mission sisters almost for about 10 to 15 years across the world. Somnath worked till he died a couple of years back. Somnath Chattopadhyay for Larsen & Toubro, I remember his work starting in 83. So it is one of the things is if you are working with a few organizations and you want to bring change, you should be available all the time as an organizational mentor. So that is where I think the original definition, it's a long-term involvement to bring change, because change needs to be constantly evaluated. Very important point you mentioned, sustainability and development don't go together. If you are developing, you are not sustained. Something else has happened and things like that. So the question I want to ask you, do you think, in your interventions in the recent part, are people patient enough to wait for any long-term impact? How are you dealing with this to show results? Because the moment you are a OD consultant today, everything they want instantaneous. Tomorrow I want the results to be there. Like on the mobile you get an answer, Google gives you an answer, so OD consultant. So how are you able to manage this problem in terms of your own OD experiences? I would also want to ask you that question.
So I'm reminded of the words of my spiritual master. Somebody asked him, it's a real conversation, वो practice नहीं होता मेरे से. Though the technique you have told is very good, वो रोज practice नहीं होता. So master said कि probably enough pain has not touched your life yet. So people are committed when enough pain has touched their life. This is an unfortunate truth of reality. Some Buddha-like person is there who is awakened by looking at others' pain or the pain as such. The person, otherwise we all have to go through, most of us have to go through the pain. I can share, this is since this is already in the form of the case study recently published in the organization healing space, this is a port. This port was acquired from by one very big business house from another big business house in the eastern part of India. And as it happens, when you acquire land, then you make many people unhappy. Even if you give a job to them, their families, that grudge remains. And now this is not something which can be fixed by behavioral training. The employees having grudge because you acquired land is much deeper kind of issue. So, and then there is always a tendency to fix by looking at compensation, economics, all that. But the simmering reached to that level where it turned out to be a very kind of acrimonious relationship, and then there was a strike, and there was even violence. Then the collective bargaining and all those things also wouldn't work. What worked and on which this whole case study was written, and in some bit we were part of it, but this Art of Living organization, which was more kind of engaged in the day-to-day, weekly programs. There was a yoga-based intervention, starting from the personal healing. One of the one of the very clear impact which we have observed in our empirical studies in the yoga-based practices, particularly the Art of Living Sudarshan Kriya, is that it is very good at healing. There are some practices which are good at a deep meditative experience. There are some which are good at healing first. There are some to make you more active. So there is a variety of the interventions possible at the individual level, which yoga and the mindfulness traditions provide us. That intervention was called Harmony Program. People were invited to attend the program during the office hours, because the acrimony was such that if they are called beyond the office hours, they will have all excuses for not coming. After the first batch, many of you must have seen and might have heard that supervisors do not release their people to attend the program. Different from this, actually supervisors proactively started asking for their people to take for this program, because they could see the clear shift in their way of approaching things, approaching conflict situations. There was a positive spillover effect at the family. So the bad habits of addiction and the domestic violence, in those cases also, there was a significant drop, and the families also started reporting to the office that, okay, after attending this 1 week program, every week follow-up, there's a positive change. We have seen when this intervention was already for 2 months, there was a strong, good community being built. Every week they would meet, they will do the practice, they will talk about the positive experience of their practice. So this was a clear intervention, and after a month or so, we could see the harmony very much there, and of course now the port is growing, and that has become the matter of past. Some of the other organizations, in fact, the head office of the organization also started using it for their top management. So all that for the senior management, and all that happened. So this is one intervention which one has like opportunity to closely work and kind of observe and document it. Another thing is more well-being based intervention, which is in the initial stage. The tenet of the this well-being, and we have a portal called panchakoshavellbeing.in. The basic tenet of this intervention is that business of business is not business. Business of business is well-being. So if we start from that tenet, we start getting ideas, and it is the people only who give the ideas how the well-being being the bottom line, how we will conduct the business. Third thing, which I have kind of a longest, more often I have had opportunity to kind of employ is appreciative inquiry. The appreciative inquiry, particularly the provocative propositions, that is stage which comes after the discovery, design, and after the dream. When the provocative proposition is kind of properly initiated, generally what comes out is very, very inclusive. What makes me to conclude is at the individual level, we all are dharmic. At the individual level, we all are sustainable. At the individual level, we all are responsible. It is only a matter of more sophisticated communication and our analytical thinking so that these deepest human values, truth, beauty, goodness, and love can be translated at the organizational level. One has had opportunity of conducting this appreciative inquiry for at least maybe more than 24 large groups, and invariably we have found there are great insights where the wellness of all and the social and the business benefits are not viewed at the antagonistic to each other. We need to work on we need to harness, we need to nurture, we need to create a space for the collective wisdom to arise. It is very much there in our humanness. That is what my submission is.
Thank you. That's wonderful. So I think spiritual interventions using yoga, and of course, I don't call appreciative inquiry spiritual, but in some ways maybe it is spiritual because you only talk of whatever good is happening and so on. And you mentioned to me that even an institution like IIT slowly is getting involved with appreciative inquiry. I think you started something which you say there is a demand for more such kind of programs. Any experiences from you, Debashish, very quickly?
Yeah, sure. Very quickly, yeah. I mean, I think while I was talking earlier, I had been very self-critical about what the CXOs should do, and we don't have any answers. I'll be slightly, so I now earned the right to be slightly critical about the OD practitioners as well. You know? It was my small ploy to do that. But I would not being critical, but I think over the last few years, I've been working with OD. We do this as our role very often, right? They help us solve our problems. I think, in summary, what I believe is this: OD should itself go through OD. OD of the past has evolved a lot. We are solving very different kinds of problems, and I don't think our current practices or practitioners are equipped to handle that. Again, I don't know how to solve that problem. I'll give you a couple of, again, I'll tell you 3 things that has really changed as far as I see as a practitioner when I run organizations, right? OD was always supposed to be a planned or proactive change. That's the basic definition of OD. All planned. OD is always a planned place where you go from place X to place Y and you achieve your organizational efficiency, whatever the goal may be, right? Right now, because an example I gave was a product thing, that right now with that so dynamic working environment of market, all OD cannot be just proactive. It has to be reactive as well. And you will find so many situations where it is not planned, it is unplanned. We didn't even think about an OD intervention like yesterday and doing it today. Right? I don't think with that change of pace and dynamics, the OD practitioners are able to keep up with us, with the change of that. I think there has to be better framework maybe to kind of solve that problem. That's the first thing. Secondly, OD was always supposed to be long-term and structured. It's a scientific, step-by-step, methodical, systematic process for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it can be, right? And we are expected as a practitioner, OD practitioner, to follow that process. Stick to that. It's a framework, believe it, trust the process will happen. It doesn't work that way. I mean, it does in some situations, but we now need to be more iterative and more agile. We have to start believing that those frameworks were true for some situations at some point of time. It is not true anymore. I'll very quick examples because we are running out of time as well. We are dealing with a very, very complex problem of, we found out that our time to market a product was getting late. Within RCA, we found that decision making was slower. Further RCA, sir, you talked about the bureaucracy. It was more levels, decisions not being taken so fast, and therefore it was impacting the final product. We decided to now collapse some of those reporting lines and make lesser levels. It's a huge project, right? Of course, it impacts everything in the company. The way you write your JDs, the way you hire people, the way you train people, what competencies are, the way you do performance management, promotions, everything changes. Now, obviously, we made a 2 to 3 years plan, but it so happened that because of various situations, we had to now do it in bits and pieces. We said that, listen, we don't wait for 3 years to do that final landing. We make it agile, like an MVP that you have in IT, minimum viable product. Let's do this JD in 6 months and start with that. Next 6 months, how do we hire the right people? Then you do leadership. But I think the practitioners struggled with that. And I think we were not able to connect with that kind of a speed, right? That's one. The third one I would say is that, very quickly, OD was always been evidence-based, right? You have done something in the past, it has kind of worked, and you think it is repeatable. So you do the same way. A lot of our problems we deal with is very ingenious, right? It is very innovative. So you talked about being a spiritual organization, how to be both purpose-driven and profit-driven. I think most of the CEOs want to be that way, trust me. But if I go to a good OD practitioner, what his or her salt, they will struggle to tell me, Debashish, do it this way. You spend so much of money on saving or not emitting greenhouse or carbon emission on the skin, but you will still be profitable in 5 years, right? I have not seen that blueprint yet. Because if I spend more on ESG, and maybe it increases the price of my product, my competition are not doing it, their price is lower, my profitability going bad because of that. That problem is not being solved by OD. For the tried and tested problems, they are very good. For the new age problems like ESG, wellness, D&I think you have a long way to go. And that's what the help we need.
Thank you. One point I would like to pick up from what you're saying is, quite unlike what we have said earlier, you are saying even problem solving could be OD. If there is a problem an organization is facing, and you say, no, I am going to be involved long term, there is no, I think you have to solve those. Very interesting. In fact, that is where the question of OD with a bag of tricks. Now, how do you deal with toxic leadership, for example? Maybe 360-degree feedback could help, or some kind of a feedback. Years ago, we did what Uday Parikh introduced as role negotiation exercises between the leader and the team, where you put on a piece of paper your expectation from the leader. Maybe you can use appreciative inquiry there and then slowly move on to this. So I think this question of long term versus short term is something that needs to be, probably you have to take both these into consideration. But if I ask PM, I'm sure you would vote more for long term rather than bag of tricks.
Yeah, bag of tricks, certainly not.
Certainly
but
not.
I think I tend to agree that we are OD
practitioners
are underprepared.
Yeah.
And I agree with Pandey and others. I mean, they've said it all, so I won't repeat it. But I do want to emphasize that OD in the future, and to do all that we are saying, till the OD practitioner has the credibility and a seat on the board, not much else will happen.
Yeah.
Everybody else will be doing whatever else they are doing, but unless there is an influence at the board level,
that's
for many of this.
That's a tall order. You could do
it. Is a possible order. It is a possible order, and it has been done.
I think it's possible.
It has been done.
Yeah.
Or create advisory boards.
Okay.
That have the trust of the board or the regulatory board.
Yeah.
And the advisory board must have people who understand many of these issues.
Very good, excellent. Yeah.
Otherwise, we are, the tail is wagging the dog.
Yeah. I think, would you say that's one of the reasons why you are able to initiate so many changes in GMR?
GMR and other places.
And other places.
One of the conditions is that I am on the board, either the advisory board or the regulator. More often the advisory board, because regulatory boards are, suffocating.
But what kind of a preparation is required? Suppose you are on the board, is that good enough, or is there some solid preparation?
We have to go on retreats. Unless the leaders...
The OD facilitator, not everyone may be capable by putting on the board.
So you can get some very good facilitators. You yourself can be a facilitator. That trust and credibility is there. And we have, whenever there is an intervention, or call it what you like, I spend 3 to 6 months only with the leaders. Only with the leaders, or even more. And then, so that's where direction happens. That's where resources get allocated. That's where reviews happen. That is where mindsets happen. So so that's all I have to say.
That's because of your credibility, your past work, your preparation, your insights. Do we have those kind of OD consultants? And what is the role of educational institutions today to prepare such? This is one point I think we need to discuss. Both of you are in very
on the other hand, if a marketing CXO, a marketing head can get onto the board, the CEO can get on the board, OD as a practice is as complex and deep and affecting the entire health of the organization and its success. It surely must find a place there, either from the individual, or there must be some mechanism, some thinking which promotes OD to that level of influence. Otherwise, we will have a lot of good wishes, they don't get acted.
Sir, just one point. I think I agree to that completely. We had a situation where we had somebody from OD who was part of our core group sitting on the table with the CXOs. It was a very good working model. It really worked for us, right? But finding that person like Professor is very difficult. And that is where you're talking.
I'm not a professor. I wear a boiler suit.
We have given you that designation.
Okay. But I like my boiler suit.
I think finding that person, that practice, that's why talking about how to do a OD for OD as well, I think is important. Yeah.
No, that's where I come to another point. What are we doing enough as educational institutions? Both of you are from two prominent institutes and you have been through other institutes. What do we need to do to prepare the OD facilitators, either in our PhD programs, or there are only 3 to the extent I know in India which prepare OD facilitators. One is Tata Institute, which has a 1 or 2 year program. Second, ISAPS, which has a 3-4 phase program with this. And then the third is that OD Institute, which is run by Santosh and team. He does it also with, other than that, I don't know much in terms of, is this enough? Do you think, are you chaps doing anything? Soil is also, yes. Soil also is, they may not claim to be, but anyway, change management. Yes, that's a very good institution. Any comments from you? How about in your courses? And what are your thoughts on the role of educational institutions in building the OD profession, OD professionals, and bring them to a level they can find a seat on the board?
So whenever it, I think, comes to effecting any large-scale change in society, or even at national level, sometimes, and this is true for sustainability as well, even at the international level, it always comes down to educational institutions. They are held responsible to drive change by seeding these thought processes and generating awareness in the minds of young individuals. But let's talk about current reality. Where are the pathways of OD professionals? Who talks about it? Do we have somebody to shine a light that, all right, if you graduate as an OD professional, this is your path in life. This is the community that you will belong to. This is how you will grow. This is what will happen to you. We don't project OD as a career option, honestly. All right? The ISAPS program that you're speaking about, even the program at TIS, what happens is that individuals find their calling in life or they gravitate towards the domain of organizational change and therefore decide to do these programs after having sampled some of the other career pathways or avenues. What's happening currently is that honestly, as an academician, as a professor in the area of change management, I struggle. I offer courses on managing change and OD, and it's a core course in our MBA HR program. It's a very fairly well-established program. It's offered with all seriousness, and students take it up with all seriousness. Lots of case studies, activities, serious assignments over there, and I bring in a lot of industry thought process. So senior practitioners like Mr. Ashok Ramachandran from the Aditya Birla Group, Mr. Ronald Sequeira, etc., I take in their inputs to craft the course as well as to craft the assignments. And they advise me and mentor me saying that, okay, the students should know more about how to diagnose in an organization, how to facilitate more. So we take in all of that and we try to do as much as we can. Organizations, when they come in for placements, question students or interview students on models, change programs, etc. Give them profiles to drive change, not OD. And so I have had to title my course as Managing Change and Organization Development. Because if I position it as OD, how will it get received? And so I try to deliver on my responsibility as an academic institution, but there is also the industrial reality that I have to negotiate and reconcile with. One is that. So one is this teaching aspect, and here is where I come back to organization development is also at some level individual development. And Ashish, I think, has done a stellar job of articulating it and advocating it, how a huge transformation in individual consciousness is required. I also try and offer courses, and these are fairly successful courses, which help students to generate a lot of self-awareness. You see, one of the aspects that the field of HR is also struggling with is that we don't have great role models in the space of OD, in the space of HR, to drive organization development. And when our younger HR professionals look up and they see these models or these role models not being there, what is it that they can aspire towards? So we have failed on that count, let's be honest. I also have a complaint over here. I always tell my colleagues in the OD network, whatever you are doing, please document. Please produce knowledge. Please make that available through open sources to youngsters. We have failed on that count also. I've tried to convert and I've been successful at converting 2. Of course, they've helped to write the chapters there. So one is on this teaching aspect. The other is on the research aspect. We try and encourage, and I try and research myself and write case studies, etc. But a lot more needs to be done. So are we delivering? And then to my mind, every leader that we are graduating and convocating should live the OD values. Otherwise, we are not doing a fair job. So that's a point that I'd like to.
I think you have been leading NHRD and doyen of NHRD. I think there are many examples in India from the NHRD community who have been great influencers at the very top. I can name a few, but you know them. Let Santrupt Mishra, Arvind Agarwal, and so on and so forth. So we need to start creating those profiles for impact.
Yeah, we have 30 of them documented in a book on leaders in the making, I agree. We will be closing in the next couple of minutes. 1 minute for for you.
Not more than 1
Ashish,
minute.
And then very quickly, if there are 1 or 2 questions, we'll take for any members of the panel, and then we'll close.
Okay. So, not for the self-promotion, but just an immediate response. I have a NPTEL course on OD and management of change. It is open course. Generally, it is offered in the even semester. 2,000 people register for that. And then, okay, thanks very much. so that's but of course, that is not the answer to the very, very big question. Very simply, the role in the board, but with the selfless orientation. That is very important. What as a practice developing the field of OD? It may not be from the OD school, but it may be from the. I learn a lot OD from the social entrepreneurs. Since IIT has that space where Abhyuday and many forums are there, we hear a lot of social entrepreneurs. They are able to connect the profit and the planet. Many of them are very successful. So I think that is one field where we can look at for the ideas for the business.
All right, thank you. That's wonderful. Any quick questions? I'm happy to see. Oh, you have a question. Yes. Shout from there.
Thank you. So we hear Professor Ashish, you mentioning that जो सरक रहा है वो संसार है. So संसार इति संसार है, and then we are also hearing that there are 3 generations working together. So my question is how we are aligning, means how we are aligning the 3 generations together while the world is changing and we are now going to have another generation join our, and the gen gap is also changing very fast. Means earlier it used to be, I don't know, 2 decades, 1 decade, and we used to say there is a generation gap. Now it's 2 years, 3 years, we say that, okay, they are of next gen, gen alpha, gen whatsoever it is. So how we are trying to align all those to organization's true north, means what organization is seeking.
Quick response. When there is lot of change happening all around, it is all the more important to find a strong anchor. I may call it sustainability. As a student of Indian wisdom, I may call it dharma, I may call it well-being, whatever. But once we identify that anchor, then it results into more complementarity than the competition. Because of the nomenclature, we assume that they are different and then there is a competition. Life is not only competition, it is a lot about complementarity. Evolution could happen because complementarity could happen. So instead of looking at generations as distinct, but having a distinct complementarity, I have just started my business like 1 year back. It was not possible for me to set up an organization, set up a company without having the youngsters. So it is not about competition, it is about complementarity that will flourish only in the light of a grand, committed, large vision and the superordinate goal.
Thank you so much.
My answer will be leave them alone. Let each one. I think it's okay. Every generation has their own way of looking at things. Why do you want to align them? Don't even think of aligning them. I mean, these are all different points of view. First of all, I want to thank you. I think this topic is never ending. We have just begun. In fact, Niharika just left, but other members are there. Is it possible for you to continue this dialogue through ADCLD in some form or the other? Create, maybe for a short term, because these forums don't last beyond certain months. Maybe for next 3 months, 6 months, something like that. Think about it. We can have dialogue where there are many questions, I'm sure, which remain answered. One thing is clear. In this institute itself, from Sudhir Kakkar, Kamala Chaudhary days, there used to be courses on managing change. And there used to be also, even as recent as in the last 5-6 years, it became a OD. Of course, that OD is defined in a different way. Not only the organization development, organizational design and so on, is a compulsory course, I am told, in the 3rd term of this. Now, the purpose is not to prepare OD specialists, but to develop an appreciation on the part of users of OD, what organization development can do in terms of creating change and things like that. So we have a long way to go. I want to thank you. Very rich experience, very provocative kind of thoughts that you have all shared. It has been a pleasure learning from you. And I'm sorry we couldn't give much of an opportunity for you to question, but at least I've made a suggestion to continue the forum. Hopefully, Niharika madam and others, if they continue, we'll have an opportunity to dialogue through ADCLD. Thank you very much once again to IIM and to Shanghai Sai Center.
Thank you all. It was really an insightful discussion. I'm sure we are definitely benefited with the expertise and insights the panelists have shared with us. I myself had a lot of questions to ask. I thought I was constantly looking at the clock, but yeah, maybe off the track, I would definitely get in touch with you and, you know, fulfill my curiosity by asking questions. But yeah, before we leave, I would request Mr. Ashank Desai to please come and facilitate our panelists with a token of love. This is a small gesture of love from Ed Claude to all the panelists. Sonali, if you can help out. Yeah. Okay. Dr. Veena Vohra. Please give a huge round of applause to all our panelists for sharing their expertise and wisdom. Last but not the least, the moderator of this panel discussion, Professor T.V. Rao.